Hello and welcome to Freya's Tropical Garden. This is the first episode of Series 3. I hope you've all had a lovely start to your new year, and I hope your gardens aren't too badly damaged by the storms and snow that we've had so far. Here's what we've got coming up for you in today's episode. I visit Ventnor Botanic Gardens on the Isle of Wight. I look at 20 houseplants that thrive on neglect. There's the draw for last month's competition. And there's a new competition to win some Tradescantia. But first, let's take a look at how my garden's been doing since the last episode. Of course, winter is the hardest time of year for most gardeners, not just tropical gardeners. And my garden is certainly not looking at its best right now, with many of the plants that I grow having turned brown and died back for winter. And I haven't been out yet to tidy it all up, so it all looks a bit of a mess. You may notice I haven't protected any of my plants with fleece this year. The majority of plants that are still in the ground don't really need it, and those that I have potted up have been moved closer to the house for extra shelter. But I will still keep an eye on the weather if we are expecting any particularly bad freezes, but so far this winter has been quite mild here in Hampshire. We have had some frost, which has cleared quickly, and even some snow, which didn't settle. But on the whole, temperatures are so mild, even my arum lilies haven't completely died back yet. Before I had to start digging up my garden at the beginning of last year, I had started planting more plants that would stay evergreen throughout winter. And although this project is abandoned for now, I wanted to show you some of the plants that are still green in my garden, and hopefully this can inspire you if you want to create more winter interest in your own garden. Nephophia northii and nobilis are evergreen plants which are hardy throughout most of the UK, surviving down to around -10 degrees C. Acanthus Mollis is a semi-evergreen plant, keeping its leaves in milder winters, although it remains hardy down to around -20 degrees C. Melaleuca major is hardy in milder areas of the UK and will keep its foliage in warmer winters. I'm hoping this one will stay green this year, as it only flowers from the previous year's growth. Camellia japonica is not only hardy and evergreen throughout the UK, but it will also start to produce flowers from late winter to early spring, making it a great choice for winter interest. Nerium oleander is an evergreen shrub, but it's only hardy in the milder areas of the UK. I've grown this one outside for several years with no problems and no protection. Acacia dealbata is a fast-growing evergreen tree which is hardy in milder areas of the UK. It can survive short periods of up to -10 degrees C, and as you can see it's already starting to flower now with these beautiful yellow puffball flowers. Most bamboos are hardy and evergreen and can make good plants for a winter garden. However, even with clumping varieties, there is a risk of them becoming invasive. I have planted mine in the ground in pots, but even this is a short-term solution as roots will break the pots. Equisetum japonicum is also both hardy and evergreen. It grows well in moist soil, so it tolerates our wet winters well and is an attractive addition to a winter garden. Wallamia nobilis is an evergreen tree which is hardy in most of the UK. During cold weather it develops waxy white polar caps to help protect the growth buds. Mahonia subcares, like other Mahonias, are hardy down to around -12 degrees and remain evergreen throughout winter. And better still, once it's mature enough to flower, it will do so in late autumn, well into winter. Callistemon hardiness varies between species, but some, like Woodlander's hardy or rigidus, can take temperatures down to -10 degrees C and will keep their leaves in winter. Pseudopanax gecko gold is hardy in milder areas of the UK, and its beautiful variegated foliage makes it a great plant for winter interest. Fatsias are often grown in UK tropical gardens for their beautiful evergreen foliage. I have several varieties here, including Polycarpa, Spider's Web, and Variegata. They flower late in the year and now are starting to produce their berries, which adds to their winter appeal. Dicksonia antarctica can survive UK winters without protection in milder areas and will remain evergreen if the winter stays warm enough. In colder areas, the crown should be protected with fleece. Dryopteris affinis is a cold-tolerant fern that can survive down to -15 degrees C. It is semi-evergreen and will keep its leaves in milder winters. Eriobotria japonica, or the locat, is an evergreen fruit-bearing tree which can take temperatures down to around -10 degrees C. Of course, these are just a few of the plants which are still looking good now in January, and I will bring you some more evergreen inspiration next time. Meanwhile, the less hardy plants that I grow have been brought indoors into my spare room. This is not ideal for all of them, as some struggle with central heating, and I have lost a couple of plants. But I have not been able to use my frost-free grow tent this year, so I'm trying to make do. For some, however, they are thriving under the bright grow lights, and many have flowered. Many people struggle to grow Musa Siam Ruby because it needs plenty of heat and light through winter. At the moment, this one is getting both. My Monstera deliciosa has started to fenestrate for the first time. Both my Impatiens aureocoma and my Impatiens neamensis have both flowered already. My Solanum pyracanthus is also flowering. And my Strobilanthes diariana. My Abutilon hot orange larva is producing flowers. And my Tradescantia purpurea. Even though my bougainvillea has been struggling with the central heating, it still managed to produce some flowers. And so far, only one of the amaryllis that I've kept going from last year has flowered. I've kept some small cuttings of this Begonia Santa Cruz indoors as a backup in case I lose my main plant over winter, and this is flowering too. I am really excited though that my Strelitzia reginae is going to be flowering for the first time. This plant can take 7 years before it flowers, and it prefers to be pot-bound. Hopefully I can show you these flowers next time. Next up, it's competition time. Last month I ran a competition to win an Epipremnum or pothos plant. I've had 7 entries into this competition and I've decided to use the Wheel of Names to draw it. Here are the 7 entries that replied to my video confirming that they lived in the UK. I've entered them all into the Wheel of Names, and now it's time to spin to see who's won. Good luck to all of you. And the winner is Primark Footy. Congratulations, you have won the pothos. Please let me know your address at freyastropicalgarden@gmail.com. To those who didn't win this time, thank you very much for entering, and please do enter my next competition. Tradescantia is a genus of herbaceous perennial from the family Comlinaceae, native to the Americas. Commonly known as the inch plant, spiderwort, or wandering dude. They make great houseplants as they're easy to grow, and many varieties have stunning pink or purple foliage. Ideally, they should be watered from the bottom of the pot, as they don't like their leaves getting wet. They should be watered when the top 2 inches of soil have dried out, and they grow best in indirect bright light. Tradescantia can be propagated by cuttings, and roots very easily in water or in soil. In fact, it's taken this cutting just 6 days to root in water. I grow several different varieties of Tradescantia, and for this month's competition I'll be giving away 5 different varieties of Tradescantia cuttings to the winner, and 3 different varieties to 2 further winners. So if you've never tried rooting cuttings before, this is a great one to start with. Entry is free. All you need to do is comment on this video to confirm that you live in the UK as I can only post to UK postal addresses. This competition will close on the 14th of February, and results will be drawn in the next episode of Freya's Tropical Garden. Please make sure you turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next episode, as I have had some unclaimed prizes in the past. Best of luck to everyone who enters. Coming up next, we've got a trip to Ventnor Botanic Gardens on the Isle of Wight. Ventnor Botanical Gardens is situated in Ventnor on the Isle of Wight. It benefits from a microclimate, with chalk downs protecting it from cold north winds, and a southerly location that benefits from warmer weather, meaning the garden rarely gets frost, and if they do, it doesn't last long. This enables them to grow plants you might not see outdoors in the UK in other gardens. Part 1 of this series takes you around the garden through the South African, Australian, New Zealand, Mediterranean, Japanese and palm gardens. And Part 2 looks more closely at the arid garden and the tropical glasshouse. Freya lanceolata is commonly known as honey bells and is a tree native to South Africa. It has long drooping branches of willow-like foliage and yellow honey-scented flowers, which give it its nickname. It grows best in clay or loam-based soil in full sun and is hardy in milder areas of the UK. Protea Cynaroides is commonly known as the king protea and is a flowering plant native to South Africa. Its thick stem bears glossy green leaves, while the flower can reach 30 centimetres in diameter. It prefers sandy or loam-based acidic or neutral soil and full sun, although it's not normally hardy in the UK in all but the mildest south coast areas. It can be grown in conservatories in pots. Sambucus nigra black lace is a deciduous tree native to Europe as well as parts of Africa and Asia. Commonly known as elder, its dark foliage contrasted with pale pink clusters of flowers make it an attractive addition to any garden. It prefers full sun and is hardy throughout the UK. Roldana Petasitis is commonly known as the Californian geranium and is a shrub native to Central America. It grows up to 1.8 meters tall with large, soft, hairy leaves, which can grow up to 20 centimeters wide. It grows well in sun or shade and can tolerate some drought. It's hardy to around -10 degrees C and will even stay evergreen in milder winters. Eucalyptus Globulus is commonly known as the blue gum and is a tree native to Australia. It's a fast-growing evergreen tree which can reach up to 30 meters tall and even more under ideal conditions. It prefers acidic or neutral, sandy or loam-based soil, full sun, and is hardy in milder areas of the UK. Eucalyptus cordata is commonly known as the heart-shaped silver-leafed gum and is a tree native to Tasmania. It's a fast-growing eucalyptus which can grow up to 50 foot tall with bright silvery leaves. It prefers full sun and well-draining soil and is hardy down to around -10 to -15 degrees C. Eucalyptus coccifera is commonly known as the Tasmanian snow gum and is an evergreen tree native to Tasmania. It typically grows around 15 meters tall with smooth light grey bark and fragrant glossy blue-green leaves. It prefers full sun and once mature is hardy down to around -10 to -16 degrees C. Cantua Buxifolia grows naturally in the valleys of the Andes Mountains in South America. Locally known as Cantu, it's a half-climbing shrub which produces bright pink tubular flowers in spring. It grows best in full sun and is hardy in milder areas of the UK. Carpobrotus Acinaciformis is a low-growing succulent commonly known as Sally My Handsome, which is native to South Africa. Producing beautiful pink flowers in spring and summer, this plant has naturalised in rocky or sandy coastal areas of Cornwall and Devon. Melaleuca Rugulosa was previously known as callistemon, and it's an Australian shrub which produces scarlet bottlebrush flowers. It needs full sun to thrive and well-draining soil, and is considered half-hardy in the UK. Melaleuca Viminalis is commonly known as the weeping bottlebrush and is native to Australia. It can grow up to 10 metres tall, producing masses of red bottlebrush flowers, which hang as though weeping, giving it its nickname. It prefers full sun, although it tolerates some shade, and needs regular water, but can survive drought as a mature plant. Dasylirion Serratifolium is also known as the sandpiper sotal and is a short-stemmed shrub related to yuccas. It grows to around 1.5 metres tall with sharply serrated leaves and produces a flower spike that can reach around 15 foot tall. It grows best in full sun and can be grown in milder areas with some additional winter protection. Hydrangeas are not normally my favourite plant, but even I was captivated by the beauty of this dark-stemmed lacecap variety, possibly Zorro or Abracadabra star. Like all hydrangeas, they prefer evenly moist soil and partial shade. They can grow in most soil types, although soil pH may affect the colour of the flowers. Grevillea Johnsonii, or Johnson's spider flower, is a flowering shrub native to Australia. Its leaves look like needles, while it bears orangey-red spider-like flowers, as its nickname suggests. It naturally grows in rocky environments and is therefore drought-tolerant. Grows best in full sun and is hardy in milder areas of the UK. Cycas Revoluta is commonly known as the sago palm and is a cycad native to Japan. It's a cone-bearing plant with palm-like fronds that emerge in flushes. They prefer full sun and free-draining soil and can be grown outdoors in milder areas of the UK or in pots and brought indoors for winter. Miscanthus is a genus of grass native to Asia, commonly known as Japanese silvergrass. This one is possibly longiburbis, with tall arching green leaves and white or pink flowers in late summer. Miscanthus grows best in full sun and well-draining soil. It does not need feeding, and many species are hardy, but this can vary. Acanthus Mollis is often called bear's breeches and is a flowering plant native to Asia and the Mediterranean. It has large, glossy green leaves that can grow up to 50 centimetres long and tall flower spikes in summer. It grows in full sun or full shade and is hardy throughout the UK. Echium Pininana is commonly called giant viper's bugloss and is native to the Canary Islands. Mostly they are biannual, flowering and then dying in their second year, although it can take 3 years or more to flower. When it does, the flower spike can grow 5 centimetres a day to around 4 metres tall. They prefer full sun and not too much water, and are hardy in milder areas of the UK. Salvia Hot Lips is a flowering plant native to Mexico, famed for its unusually shaped red and white flowers, which give it its nickname. It continues to produce an abundance of flowers in summer and autumn until the first frost. It prefers full sun and is hardy in most of the UK. Ficus Carica Brunswick is a variety of fig tree with large, deeply lobed leaves and bearing a large crop of edible fruits in autumn. Fig trees are native to Syria and Persia, but have been grown in the UK since Roman times. It grows best in full sun and is one of the hardier varieties to grow in the UK. Ficus carica brown turkey is another variety that produces an abundance of fruit and is considered more hardy in the UK. Ficus carica are deciduous figs that can be pruned in spring to maintain shape. As with all fig trees, the sap can be toxic, causing skin irritation to those susceptible to it, so care should be taken when handling these plants. Parasyrianthes lophantha is a beautiful tree known as the plume albizia and is native to Australia, where in some parts is considered a weed. Its feathery foliage and creamy white bottlebrush-like flowers make it a stunning addition. It prefers neutral, sandy or loam-based soil, but is frost-tender, only surviving in the UK's most sheltered gardens, or it can be grown in pots and brought in for winter. Pseudopanix crassifolius is commonly known as the lancewood and is an evergreen tree native to New Zealand. Young trees have stiff, irregularly toothed leaves with a prominent midrib, while on mature plants they become wider and shorter, losing their teeth. They grow best in full or partial sun and are hardy in most of the UK. Solanum laciniatum is a woody shrub native to Australia, commonly known as the Tasmanian kangaroo apple, due to the leaf shape resemblance of a kangaroo paw. It can grow between 1 and 3 meters tall and grows in full or part sun, but should be brought indoors over winter. Sophora microphylla kowai is commonly known as the weeping kowai and is native to New Zealand. It is related to the acacia and can grow up to 8 meters in height and produces yellow flowers in spring. It grows best in full sun in a sheltered position and is hardy in most of the UK. Trachycarpus wagneranus, often simply known as waggy, is a palm tree thought to have been cultivated in Japan, as it's not found growing in the wild. It is likely to be a more compact form of Trachycarpus fortunei, with stiffer, smaller leaves making it more wind tolerant. It prefers full or partial sun and is hardy throughout most of the UK. Carsonia paniculata is an evergreen tree native to South Africa. It can reach between 3 to 5 meters in height and in difficult growing conditions may produce a caudex, meaning the base becomes fat with stored water. This disappears as the tree grows. It is hardy to -6 degrees or lower, but may lose its leaves in prolonged frosts. Genista aetnensis is a tree commonly known as the Mount Etna broom, which grows to around 8 meters tall. It is native to Sicily and Sardinia, where it grows in sunny, open landscapes in poor, stony soil. It is hardy down to around -15 degrees C. Wollemia nobilis, or the Wollemi pine, is a coniferous tree native to Australia. It was known only to the fossil records and believed to be extinct until 1994. The Wollemi pine is a relative of the monkey puzzle tree. It grows best in full sun or partial shade and is hardy in most of the UK. Podocarpus henkelii, or Henkel's yellowwood, is a tree native to South Africa. Although the long drooping leaves are deceiving, it's actually a conifer and bears cones on separate male and female trees. It is still relatively untested in the UK, but should survive in milder areas of the UK. Next up, we're going to take a look at 20 houseplants that thrive on neglect. Many keen gardeners struggle more to grow plants indoors. More plants die from being overwatered than any other cause, and it's easy to understand how this happens when the top of the soil looks dry and the plant leaves are turning brown. Giving it more water can seem like the logical approach. Others like to have a plant that they can leave alone and water it occasionally when they remember or have time. A plant that won't die when they're away on holiday, perhaps. In this video, I will show you 20 houseplants which can take at least some level of neglect. These plants are more likely to be killed by kindness, so less is more. Although the timescales given for how long each plant can survive with neglect are a rough guide and can vary depending on how established the plant is, the pot size, and the temperature of the room, to name just a few variables. So if you are looking for an easy to care for houseplant, here are 20 you can try. Some Schefflera or Heptaplurum can be grown outdoors in the UK. However, less hardy species make good houseplants. Also known as the umbrella tree, they grow in Australian forests and can survive for a few weeks without water. They should be watered when the soil dries out and do not need any fertiliser, although they do benefit from fortnightly feeds in spring and summer. Chlorophytum are better known as spider plants and normally grow in the undergrowth in mountainous regions of Africa. They should therefore avoid direct sunlight and can be watered when the soil is completely dry. They'll survive for a few weeks with no water. Fertiliser is an optional extra, and they will put up with lower light conditions. Ideally, however, they prefer damp soil and medium humidity. Philodendron are native to the tropical rainforests of Central and South America. They can go at least 2 weeks without water, but it's best to water it when the top inch of soil is dry. They need fertilizer every 2 weeks during the warmer months, or the plant will have slower growth and paler small leaves. They prefer bright indirect light, but those with solid green leaves can tolerate lower light levels. Many species of yucca are better grown outdoors in the UK. However, elephantiepes, which is native to the deserts of Mexico, is not fully hardy and grows better as a houseplant. They can tolerate low light conditions and low humidity and can go several weeks without water. They should only be watered when dry, as they are prone to rotting if kept too moist, and they do prefer fertilizer once a month. Cariota are palm trees known as fishtail palms and grow in the tropical rainforests of Asia. They make excellent houseplants and will tolerate dry soil, but it does cause them to go dormant and stop growing, and eventually leaves will start to turn brown. Although they will cope with no fertilizer for a year or two, it's best to feed them with every 4 waters. They will tolerate low light, but will grow better with bright indirect light. Strelitzia are commonly known as the bird of paradise and grow on river banks and forests in South Africa. They like bright light, high humidity and misting, although this is not essential, and prefer to be pot-bound in order to produce flowers. Their soil can dry out for a few weeks, and the plant will let you know by their leaves curling and splitting, then turning brown. They do need fertilizer in the growing season. Dieffenbachia, known as the dumb cane, grows in the rainforests of Central and South America. They can tolerate low light but may grow more slowly or become leggy. They can also tolerate no fertilizer if repotted annually with some fresh soil. They should be watered when the top 2 inches of soil is dry, but can go weeks with no water, and will show signs if it receives too little water, including drooping leaves and leaves turning brown and crinkled. Orchids are commonly grown as houseplants in the UK, and although some species can be more challenging to grow, most orchids you can find in supermarkets can be left for up to a couple of months without water and survive a year or two with no fertilizer. They do prefer more regular watering, however, as well as occasional misting, bright indirect light, and grow best in bark-based orchid compost. Bocania are known as ponytail palms and are native to the semi-deserts of Mexico. They store water in their trunks, so the soil should dry out completely between watering, and they can go many weeks without water. They also don't require any fertilizer, but can be given some once or twice during the growing season to promote growth. They prefer bright light, but can tolerate low light. Fresia splendens is a bromeliad known as flaming sword and grows in South American tropical and subtropical rainforests. They prefer bright, indirect light, and although preferring high humidity, they can tolerate low humidity. Their soil should be barely moist, and mixing in some orchid compost is beneficial, but the cup in the middle of the plant should stay filled with water. They do not need to be fertilized, but can be given some in the growing season. Epipremnum are commonly known as pothos and is a fast-growing plant native to Asian tropical and subtropical forests. They prefer low to medium light levels and should only be watered when the soil begins to dry. They can survive several weeks with no water and several months or a year or two with no fertilizer, although it will need some nutrients to promote healthy growth. Crassula ovata is a succulent, also known as the jade plant or money plant. They grow naturally on rocky hillsides and sandy slopes in South Africa, so are drought tolerant and can survive several weeks without water. However, this may lead to stunted growth and leaf problems, so they are best watered when the top layer of soil is dry. They can go several months without fertiliser, but prefer to be fed once a month in the growing season. Spathiphyllum are commonly known as peace lilies and grow in the tropical forests of Central and South America. Amazingly, these plants can survive on artificial light alone, but they will only flower with some natural light. They can survive without water for a short time and will start to droop to remind you that they need watering. They can also survive without fertiliser, but do need some for regular flowering. Howea forsteriana is commonly called the Kentia palm, and they are surprisingly robust palm trees which can survive low light, infrequent watering, and low humidity. They can survive with no fertiliser and can tolerate several weeks with no water. Ideally, though, for optimal growth, they prefer bright, indirect light, water when the top 2 inches of soil is dry, and liquid feed once a month, and misting a few times a week. Howarthia are commonly known as zebra plants. They grow on rocky outcrops and mountain slopes in South Africa and can go many months without water, but can be killed in a day from overwatering. They will benefit from fertiliser every 3 months, but this is not needed. They should avoid being placed in direct sunlight, but can tolerate lower light conditions. Aloe vera is a succulent native to the African deserts. They prefer bright light, but can tolerate some low light, although this may cause them to stretch. They should be watered when the soil has completely dried out, and can survive several months without water. They can also survive with no fertiliser, although they may benefit from some occasionally. Zamioculcas zamiofolia is commonly known as the ZZ plant and grows in the dry forests and grasslands of Africa. They should be kept out of direct sunlight but can tolerate low light levels. They can go several months without water as they store it in their rhizomes, so should be only watered when completely dry. They don't need any fertiliser, but they can be given some once or twice in the growing season. Dracaena are often known as dragon trees and are slow-growing houseplants native to several dry tropical regions around the world, and so they prefer their soil to be completely dry before watering. They can go a couple of months without water, and no fertiliser is needed, although they do benefit from a fortnightly feed during growing season. They prefer bright, indirect light, but will tolerate low light. Echeveria are rosette-forming succulents native to the semi-desert areas of Mexico. They do not need any fertiliser, and although they can benefit from some occasionally, they are more at risk of over-fertilising. They should be watered only when the soil is dry, and can go 1 or 2 months without water. They prefer bright, indirect light, but will cope with lower light conditions. Sansevieria are commonly known as the snake plant or mother-in-law's tongue. They are from Africa, where they grow naturally in very dry conditions and can go several months without water. They should be watered only when the soil is dry, and they're more likely to be harmed by overwatering. They grow best in bright, indirect light, but will grow in low light. They don't need any fertiliser, but can be given some once a month. Well, that's all we've got time for. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Freya's Tropical Garden. Please do subscribe to my channel. At the moment, we're doing really well with subscribers, and I'd love to keep that growth going. See you next time on Freya's Tropical Garden. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram or X for video updates as well as my flower of the day. And you can email me at freyastropicalgarden@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out my website at freyastropicalgarden.co.uk, where you can find a range of information including public gardens that I've visited and information on plants that have been shown on my videos. I've had so much fun making this video, but if you'd like to make a contribution towards running costs, you can do so via PayPal.